He will never get away!
Holy Spirit, save your servant. Trust God.
This time you're going to lose.
The real terror is back. George C. Scott in William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist 3.
Welcome to the 11th annual Halloween special. This is my favorite time of year, as you guys know, and I am so excited to bring you tons of genre reviews all through the month of October. And this year I decided to start with The Exorcist 3. Not only is The Exorcist Believer coming out very soon, but I think The Exorcist 3 is a highly underrated movie, and I am so excited to talk about it today. The film was written and directed by William Peter Blatty, who not only wrote the Exorcist novel that inspired the first film, but he wrote the book Legion that inspired this film. And the film faced considerable studio interference when they wanted Blatty to title the film Exorcist 3 instead of Legion, and they wanted him to include an exorcism in the end of the film to tie it into the franchise in some way, but also make it more marketable and digestible for audiences who don't know what Legion is and would rather just watch another tired Exorcist movie. But despite that interference, I think Blatty pulled off a miracle, because it's one of the very few times I've ever seen a movie that has notable and very well known studio interference be very, very good, and those notes that were taken from the studio, while perhaps not exactly in good faith, were applied to this film in a way that utilized the best nature of those notes and actually turned out to be a pretty damn great movie. If you've never seen this movie, I'm going to talk about some spoilers, so that's your fair warning. In The Exorcist 3, a police lieutenant played by the legendary George C. Scott uncovers more than he bargained for as his investigation of a series of murders, which have all the hallmarks of the deceased Gemini serial killer, leads him to question the patience of a psychiatric ward. It took me a long time to watch The Exorcist 3. In fact, it took me a long time to watch the original film too, because of the way I was raised. It took me a while to detach from the belief that watching films like this was wrong. But eventually I got around to watching the original, of course, as I've reviewed it in the past. But when it came to The Exorcist 2, which I tried to watch next, I couldn't get through it. It took me multiple times. I do not like that movie. It is not a good film, and I don't think anybody really likes The Exorcist 2. And 3 had a really bad reputation for a while. Critics' reviews were not glowing, and nobody really talked about the movie except in smaller circles. But over the years, it's really become a favorite for horror fans, especially of William Peter Blatty's, because his vision is actually quite remarkable. His first film was The Ninth Configuration, and The Exorcist 3 was his sophomore effort, and that's it. He made 2 movies. He really does feel like a seasoned, mature filmmaker who is willing to take so many risks. He really knows when to end a scene. He ends scenes on either a very cryptic line or something that's very startling or dramatically effective that makes you want to continue to watch the movie. And that is what a great author does with the end of a chapter, isn't it? They want you to keep turning to the next chapter. This film has, over the years, done something for me every time I watch it that is very rare for me, in that it actually scares me. But what do I mean by that exactly? Because you could take that in one of many different ways, so let me be a little more specific. I watch every horror movie that comes out in theaters. I've tried to watch every classic horror film that I should see, as well as tons that are not classics and ones that people even tell me I shouldn't see. I really do try to just jump into the pool that is horror and enjoy swimming around in it. And I have reactions of all different varying kinds when I watch a horror film. When I watch a movie that makes me feel suspense, like say Rear Window or M. Night Shyamalan's films, that's sort of a feeling that I process in my gut. It makes me feel tense, like the hairs on my arms are standing up or something. And also there's filmmakers like James Wan, who make me feel very startled. It's a very visceral impact that I feel while I watch his movies in the moment. And then there are filmmakers like Mike Flanagan who have these dread-inducing scares that really make you process them in an emotional way, and those usually stick with you longer, at least they do for me. What The Exorcist 3 has done for me that is truly different from all of those, and why I say it's one of the very few films that truly deeply scares me, is that it has always stayed with me after I watch it. I take it along with me. I feel like it's inside of me when I turn it off. A lot of horror films can be scary while you're watching them, but very rarely do they stay with you after you leave the theater or after you turn it off when you're walking around your house or in your neighborhood. The Exorcist 3 always stays with me. I feel scared when I'm done for at least a few hours. And it's really, really remarkable, which is so impressive considering one very interesting fact. The movie is very funny. There are a lot of great jokes in this movie. George C. Scott is incredible. He is such a fantastic actor. If you've never seen The Changeling, that is also a really great horror film from him. He's got so many great jokes with his fellow police officers, including an extended story about Carp, and his outbursts in the film should go down in legend.
Were there any signs of injuries, blood, lacerations?
That would be in the file.
It is not in the file! It is not!
Also, Patrick Ewing and Fabio have cameos. Again, I just feel like Blatty was like, I'm gonna just make the movie I want to make. And he did his best against the studio. He really pushed. You can tell. And it worked. Because there's so much weird shit in this film, I can't even begin to explain all of it. But that off-kilter vibe and the humor are balanced very well with the scares. He doesn't let it get in the way of that, an early confession sequence being one of the scariest in the film. Blatty was also very in tune with the suspense and tension of whispered conversations between people. The idea that a couple people might go away in a quiet space and talk about something really, really dark. And when they talk about it, they get quiet. And it feels weighty. It feels important. And the pauses that these actors take, as well as the edit takes, really just heighten the tension. And of course, if we're talking about scares and The Exorcist 3, we have to discuss what is now known as one of the best jump scares of all time. Jump scares are huge now, not so much in 1990. What Blatty did with this sequence that eventually culminates in the much discussed jump scare is create so much misdirection, he might as well be a magician. We rest on this shot for so long of an orderly and a guard walking around these halls. Eventually we break away from this shot and we think that this is the moment. He's kept you on edge this whole time, and we think for a moment that he just let us go, and so we sit back for a second, we're a little bit more relaxed, and that's when he gets us. The first time I saw that, it wasn't the musical sting that got me, it was actually the zoom, because we're in this locked down static shot for so long that when Blatty rips us out of that so quickly, it genuinely feels shocking. Also, what the fuck is that? That's part of the fun of it. There are so many scares in the movie where you sit back and you're like, what was that actually? And why did you do that to me? The latter half of the film is largely involved with scenes where George C. Scott interviews someone he believes could potentially be Father Karras, who is also claiming to be the Gemini killer. Now, in the theatrical cut, these sequences feature not only Jason Miller, the original actor who played Father Karras, but Brad Dourif, who claims to be the Gemini killer. This is apparently the result of considerable studio tampering in which a lot of different people had a lot of different ideas about how these scenes should play out. Regardless of the how and why of these scenes, they work very well. As this character literally switches actors, and we cut back to George C. Scott, and he's looking very confused, and he doesn't know exactly who he's looking at, we're sort of put in his mindset as a result, because as a character, a lot of the film explores whether or not he believes. He's having a bit of a crisis of faith, which leads to an insanely great monologue in which George C. Scott says all of the things that he really does believe in, and they're all negative. He doesn't say he believes in God or Jesus or the Lord or anything like that. He says, I believe in death and pain and murder and anguish and all this really dark shit, and it's so powerful. But I do want to go back to Brad Dourif because he is incredible in this movie, and it is very clear that those behind the X-Files saw this performance and thought that should be the guy for the Beyond the Sea episode. In that episode, he plays a prisoner who's locked up who seems to have psychic abilities. Never seen that before. But that is a great X-Files episode, one of the best. And the film does end with an exorcism scene, and whether or not Blatty was forced to add this exorcism at the last minute and didn't really want to, I think is beside the point because it works. It really works in the movie. And there is a very gnarly sequence where a priest's skin sticks to the ceiling and he tries to get off the ceiling and the skin stays up there, if you know what I mean. It's some real shit there. But the idea that Father Karras is able to, at the last second, sort of fight off this thing and ask Kinderman to kill him is a way of bringing some humanity to Karras, and I think that's a fantastic ending. If you do want to watch the famed Legion cut, it is available on this Blu-ray. The theatrical cut is quite good, and what they've done with the Legion restoration is impressive. But honestly, the theatrical cut is great. If you've never seen this, I mean, man, first off, I spoiled a lot, so that sucks. But it's a really good movie, and it's taken a while for it to gain some traction, and I'm glad that more people are talking about it because it feels so unique. It feels, even with the studio notes, it feels like it's just trying to knock down the system and make something that is so against the mainstream and so weird. You guys need to see this movie if you haven't. Please look forward to a lot more videos in the 11th annual Halloween special. I'm going to have so much cool shit for you this October. I can't wait to talk about all kinds of great movies. Guys, thank you so much, as always, for watching. Look forward to more videos very soon. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.